Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to BiblioTech On Air, BiblioTech's official podcast. Today we'll be covering the book The Faraway Brothers by Lauren Markham, which is available on our platform cloudLibrary. This book covers the lives of twin brothers as they navigate getting from El Salvador to the United States and their experiences in California once they make it. Now let's get right into it.
All right, so what were your first impressions of Ernesto and Raul in the book?
I honestly just saw them as like a bunch of kids growing up in very interesting situation. I didn't think too much of them yet because I feel like we were kind of just seeing their dynamic. And I liked the intro up until when they were born because I felt like that gave a lot more context to why they were, how they were,
Okay.
and the environment they were in.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think I didn't really think much of them just because it was kind of setting the tone for the book. So definitely the same.
Yeah, I agree. I think the background of the family and just kind of the whole, like, you know, they're not the oldest or not the youngest, they're kind of in between. They had other siblings and stuff. I think it kind of set the tone for who they are and where they kind of landed in terms of the family dynamic. So I thought that was very interesting. But how did life in El Salvador shape the brothers before they decided to leave? And what role did family play in the brothers' decision to migrate?
Yeah, I think where they lived shaped everything about them because even though they weren't necessarily involved in the gang violence that was occurring, it was obviously everything to them. Like their friends were starting to get involved. They had to watch where they even just played cards at night.
Yeah.
So I think it changed how they saw everything and also how they viewed their family, keeping an eye on their family, like even small like words that their cousins would use or their friends would start using. They're like, oh my gosh, they're getting involved. So they had to be very aware from a very young age.
Yeah.
And I don't think if they had been born in the U.S., they would have necessarily had to be as aware, depending on where they were born, obviously.
Sure.
But I don't think they would have had to be as aware of just verbiage or clothes or owning a phone, whereas here, everyone owns a phone pretty much at this point.
Yeah.
Whereas there it was like, oh my gosh, they have a phone and new shoes. Like something's wrong.
Yeah.
And they had to think from that perspective. And I think their family was a huge part of their life. I mean, they were all very, I would like to say close-knit, but we could see them obviously start to kind of devolve, I feel like, as a close-knit family once everyone kind of started separating.
Yeah.
And their family being, like, their family, I say, but the uncle being why they had to leave, that was insane to me. Because, like, even though they're not that close and they always kind of look down on them, I was like, to wish death and, like, gang killing against your own family over, like, a tree that you don't even know they actually did. So that was, like, very eye-opening that their family, their outside family could do that to them and cause them that much hardship.
Sure. And they were just kids trying to kill kids. You know what I mean? Like your own uncle. That's crazy.
Yeah.
What did you think, Danny?
I don't know. I felt kind of on edge from the beginning because they're kind of getting to the age where it's like easier. It's like a ticking time bomb of getting pulled into the gangs, even if they don't necessarily, you know, want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Like I've seen a lot of news articles or just stories where people share that even if they were strongly against gangs, they would kind of retaliate with their family.
Yeah. Like,
I'm going to do this and this to your family. So that's kind of where I felt like it was hidden, especially with their family, like, you know, their uncle. It was like ties to gang violence and stuff like that. That's where I was starting to be like, oh, man, this is not.
Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah.
It kind of, it reminded me of my time growing up. You know, the 80s and 90s here in the United States were just like rampant with gangs and stuff. And it was kind of like, almost like you're either going to be in a gang or you're not, right? You're going to make a choice or a decision, and they were just everywhere. So I kind of related to them in that way, where it was just like you make a choice. You try to go down this path, you go down this path, right? Poverty's a big issue and stuff. But a follow-up question to this that I actually didn't write down, but so they sent Wilbur Jr., which is the oldest brother. He was already in the United States. He was living in the, like, you know, San Francisco area. But then they had another brother after him. But the father and the mother never really decided to send him or ask him to go north. But they asked the twins, obviously for their safety and stuff. But why do you think, based off of what you read in the book, they didn't ask the other brother? They do talk about, it kind of seemed like he was a loose cannon, and maybe they kind of knew that, but they don't really touch on that. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the parents definitely wanted to view all of their children in a really bright light. Like, they never wanted to say anything bad about their kids. I mean, they didn't want to accept a lot of the things that were going on. So I think they didn't verbalize it, but I think they knew, like how you said, there was never going to be a chance probably of him sending back money. Yeah. Even at the beginning, or even maybe making it there, because maybe he would not follow instructions and get himself hurt, or the people that were going with him hurt. Yeah. So I think they probably saw that and knew that the twins had at least spoken about it on their own. Like, it was something they had considered before they were in danger. Yeah. And they were, at least if they were together, they were on a better path. They didn't really talk about joining gangs, even if that made them more of an outcast than being a gang member at that point. So I think that's probably why they did that. And obviously they weren't really ever going to consider sending the sisters, and they were kind of dwindling down on their options of trying to get some family to be successful.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that definitely the loose cannon aspect, it comes across as that.
Sure.
And then especially like with the sisters, it gets revealed later in the reading.
Mm-hmm.
I think it might be why they focused on the twins and Wilbur Jr.
Yeah, I think the true nature of who he was really came out, especially toward the sister. So
Yeah.
Okay, so considering the actual journey, obviously I don't recall. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think Ernesto left first, and then Raúl followed after.
Yes.
But what surprised you most about the journey north? Obviously they're coming from El Salvador, so they're crossing. It's not just one state or it's several countries. And so, what do you think about that? What was your thoughts on the journey north?
Yeah, honestly, it was very eye-opening for me, because when I would think about like how immigrants get into the United States, for some reason I never thought about that they're coming from not states, just Mexico. That's right on the border.
Correct.
I don't know why I never thought about that.
Sure.
So once they actually started explaining how many countries they had to cross through and the landscape they're having to cross to avoid being seen, genuinely, I had never thought about it. Like, it kind of made me be like, girl, like, obviously people are coming from other countries. I know what countries they're coming from.
Sure.
But I never took a second to be like picturing how low they are compared to where people that come from the Mexico border, especially growing up, like having family in Laredo, you go to the outlets in Laredo, you see into Mexico.
Yeah, it's
so
right
that
there.
was my like mindset growing up. I was like, well, they're right there, but that's not the truth. And they have to go through these crazy landscapes where in reality there are like city areas in these countries, but it's not like they can just walk through a like designated path. So they're having to go into these crazy areas where there's nothing to eat, there's nothing to drink. They're following strangers that they're hoping are doing the right thing and not taking them into a more dangerous situation.
Sure.
So it was honestly really crazy to think about, and I had to keep reminding myself that this is real. Like, because I read a lot of fictional stories. Like, that's what I predominantly read. So I don't usually read nonfiction.
Yeah.
And so I was like, this is real. Like, what they're telling me, like, this happened to people. Like, this is happening. So it was really interesting to learn about and realize like the depth that they have to go and into other countries that have their own violence going on.
Correct.
Survive that more violence
Correct.
to then get here. And I was just like, oh my gosh,
There's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's
and
a
they
lot.
were so young.
Yeah.
They were so young.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I agree. I think as an immigrant, especially an immigrant from Mexico, it opened up my perspective. Because the same thing, I mean, I always thought about it just, okay, well, you immigrate from Mexico and stuff like that. So seeing them go through like Honduras and then go through Mexico and have to deal with officials, or not officials, but, stories I've heard where, officials, corruption, things like that. Like, that just really did open my eyes to see, it's not just the U.S. they're dealing with, but with other countries with their own immigration laws and systems.
The thing a lot of people don't consider either is even just the dialect. Yeah, we speak Spanish
Yeah.
here in Texas. They speak Spanish in Mexico, El Salvador, Nicaragua, and Honduras. But the dialect, he even mentions in the book, like, they're going to know that I'm different because of how I dress, how I'm talking. And even when they translate books from English to Spanish, if they're direct translations, it's not going to be the same for somebody who might be reading a book from Mexico versus somebody in the United States versus somebody in like El Salvador, right? So there's a lot of differences and people don't consider that. But so speaking about the journey north, so what did you learn about the challenges migrants face before reaching the U.S. border? And did you know that many migrants actually die before ever reaching the U.S. border?
Yeah. I definitely knew about how many deaths occur, and that even when people are going, they see the dead bodies as they like are going through, which I feel like is just terrifying.
Yeah.
Because that could be them. And they know that going into it. But I think it was definitely eye-opening how I said, like, especially once they got even to Mexico, which is just like they're so close. But that's when some of the violence happened to them during their journey for Raul. That's where they were when they were found, you know, and they were so close to being safe. And yet there's still so much to be scared of, even with the safe house. I didn't think about that, like that they could still see such graphic violence while being in a safe house with the people that are supposed to be helping them.
Yeah.
Even getting across when they were like the imagery of them crossing the river. I was like, oh my gosh, like it makes it seem like you're right. You're literally looking at the wall. Like you're right there, but they're telling you like you're swimming over dead bodies right now. Like people made it this far and still didn't get into the U.S. Or they were caught or something happened or, like, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like you're so close. And yet they're still going through so much and they're seeing so much and they still have to just keep going. Like your shoes are falling off, keep going. Like that's all you can do. And then they just drop them off at the wall and dip to go pick up new people.
That's it. Yeah.
And it was a lot. It was definitely a lot.
Yeah, I think definitely for me, like, I felt really on edge, you know, the whole journey. When they mentioned Monterrey and Los Zetas, those are things, I'm from Monterrey. So, like, talking about Nuevo León and mentioning that, like, made me really nervous because I'm like, who are you going to, you know, meet or who are you going to bump into? And then, you know, just the safe house too, you know, when they ran into the dead body.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, even thinking when they were at not the safe house, but whenever they found the house and were like getting water and food and stuff, like in the back of my mind, I was like, these people are going to do something to you or they're going to turn you in. Like all these different things were just, you know, going through my head. So I think the book did a really good job at immersing you into the experience, you know, because it's hard to understand, especially when you haven't lived it, something so hard and so tough.
Yeah.
So I think it did a really good job at like just opening my perspective and kind of helping me understand, you know, what hardships they go through.
Yeah, and then the fact that one of the brothers saw that the murder of another immigrant, and he was like, I got to keep my mouth shut. I could be killed next. So I don't know where they crossed. I looked at the Google map. It's 5 miles from my childhood home.
Wow.
So they crossed in an area known as Santa Ana Wildlife Refuge, which is in Alamo, Texas. So it's a neighboring town to Far, where I'm from, and that area is very swampy, very marshy. So they went through a very thick, tough cut of the river. And what people don't notice is the river in certain areas is shallow, but I mean, the currents are very strong underneath and stuff. So the fact they went there, and then you mentioned, so they're crossing an area known as Falfurrias. Whenever I go back down to the valley, I have to go through Falfurrias checkpoint. That's just a literal Texas desert. And I think Texas State even has, I think it's their anthropology department. They go and they take these dead people's bones out and they try to give them names. They try to give them a life again and discover who they are. So the fact that they even stumbled upon that house in Falfurrias was like literally luck on their side, because they were probably maybe less than a day from death. You know what I mean? So it's really a difficult terrain. It's difficult to just make it anywhere. So it's a hard trek. Absolutely, you guys are right. It's a lot to think about. So how did your understanding of the U.S. immigration system change after reading about the brothers' arrival?
My perspective. So I had already known how harsh it was where they kept them. But I did not realize how much money is in that whole world. Like the billions and billions that they were talking about, and how over the years, like every year, each president has kind of had to push to receive more funding for it. That was extremely eye-opening. And the numbers growing and growing, and them breaking down that a lot of them are from El Salvador specifically. That was really eye-opening, because I never really thought about how much money it goes into keeping them in these facilities. And then I was like, all this money, and they're still kept in facilities that are so disgusting and terrible to them, you know? Where they do all of this, cross all of this, make it in, and then they could be assaulted while they're in these facilities, and no one's going to say anything. That they finally made it to the U.S. They don't want to get in trouble. They're finally here and maybe can get help. And it was very interesting. I liked that they talked about the difference between where the children are held, or like minors, and where the adults are held. I thought that was really even more eye-opening. I keep saying that, but it's very eye-opening, because I was like, the adults are kept in almost basically a prison, on literally basically stacked on top of each other. And yes, where the children or minors are held is a little bit better. It's still not great. But that's that there's billions going into that. But there's just so many more people coming in, and this processes are just taking so long that they're there longer than sometimes they even get to actually see the U.S. Because then by the time they're court, they're like, okay, go back. And they never even got to get actual help or talk to anyone or do anything. So that was definitely insane. And especially once the twins actually did get to go, and they took all of the minors to the courthouse, and they were just like one by one, like, okay. I was like, and then being told like, yeah, if you don't get paid help, you're out. Like there's no chance of you making it anywhere if you don't have. And I'm like, their shoes are tied by shoelaces from, like, they don't have anything. Like, what they're wearing and what they're carrying was literally given to them in the facility. So how would they ever be able to get the assistance you're saying they need to stay here? Like, that was, like, I was just like, you're joking me right now. Like, that's insane. Like, how do you expect them to do that? And I know there's not, every lawyer in the world can't drop their paid cases to do pro bono work, but, like, come on.
It's
like,
exhausting.
that was just so sad. Like, a lot of those kids, the twins in overall did get very like lucky having someone here and being able to admit like, they're also here illegally, but can they take us in? Whereas a lot of those kids, like that, they're going to be the first of their generation to make it into the U.S. and now they have to figure it out with no one. So I was like, I was like, this is no good.
It's an exhausting process.
I think I really enjoyed the statistics of it. Like the story obviously was very touching, and then the statistics kind of put it into perspective how things work. Definitely that about the minors. I don't know if you guys saw, but a couple years ago, a video came out kind of showing what it's like to be, an unaccompanied minor going through the immigration system and sitting in front of the judge.
Yeah.
And it's like such a sad thing because they're young little children just sitting in front of a judge, having to hear words they don't even understand. They don't know what you're saying to them. They're like there without their parents. So it feels very, I don't know, just disheartening, sad.
Degrading, yeah.
Yeah, it felt super. I mean, I've been through the immigration process, obviously differently than them.
Sure.
So a lot of it felt personal. I was like, okay, I can see my situation and their situation. So it was just very, disheartening just to hear about the things they have to go through, the setbacks they have to, not only just, having to come from El Salvador, leaving their family, being alone, not having their parents, being underage, but now having to navigate the legal system. It's so sad. It's incredibly sad.
With legal jargon from a country you're unaware of.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like even living here, I'm not familiar with the jargon. If you sat me in front of a judge, I'd be like, what are you saying to me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can see what a disadvantage a lot of these minors and even adults are in. They were lucky enough to have somebody that was already here.
Yeah.
So it's almost like they had a leg up, as weird as that sounds to say, versus somebody who's like, okay, I'm captured. Now, for the youth, obviously the minors, maybe your thought process was they were going to send them back immediately, but they actually had an opportunity to get to court to plead their case because they are under 18. And in their case, they were 17, but they were, still, I think, months away from being 18. So they had that opportunity. So, but the difficulties of it all and just herding them into a courtroom in bulk is just I get it. It's proceedings that are hey man, there's so many of them and we got to do it some way, but it's almost demeaning in a little bit. And it's just man, they're just herding them in there,
Yeah.
So, okay. So now that they're in the United States, obviously they make their way to California to meet with their brother, Wilbur Jr. So how did each brother adapt differently to life in the United States? And what role did school play in helping the brothers build new lives?
I think initially school was good for them. I think it gave them structure. But I think once they realized the freedoms they had, I feel like they kind of started playing around with that. The drinking and hanging out and doing things they probably shouldn't have because they had such a limited amount of time to graduate from that high school because they were already 17 going on very soon 18 and then they had to graduate I believe by 21 to be allowed in that school. So I feel like part of me in my head was come on guys, what's riding on this.
Correct.
But then also they're in the US for the first time. Now they have money.
Sure.
They're able to do so much and without as much fear of being hunted down or having to go work and work and work. So I kept fighting with myself on okay, they've never had access to new Nikes or an iPhone. Yeah, they're going to go be silly and spend the money they should have been sending home on that.
Sure.
Or they're going to want to go hang out with girls and message girls and post on Facebook things that I'm guys, you're literally outing your whole existence on Facebook. What are we doing? But I was they're young and they have more freedom than they've ever had. So that was kind of hard, but I feel like school at least gave them somewhere to be most of the time and something to work towards, even if they kept kind of falling off and going back. It was a safe space for them with adults that cared.
Correct.
And I think that's really what mattered was there's adults that actually cared. And it wasn't just we're just here to get a paycheck. Those teachers were probably not getting paid enough to deal with this and keep going back. They truly wanted to help and they were trying their best.
100%.
So I think it was very helpful for them.
Yeah, I think I really liked that. Feeling like the teachers had their back and they wanted the best for them was a really nice feeling, especially the same frustration of guys, kind of you guys got to do this even if you don't want to. But yeah, I definitely agree that having an adult that cared helped a lot.
Yeah. So I want to touch on this. This is a question I don't have, but just following up on what we're talking about, I want to touch on this delicately and carefully, just being respectful of everybody's perspective and opinion on immigration and the border. But let's say you're somebody who leans a little more conservative and you read this book and you're, a lot of people say they should do it the right way.
Yeah.
How would you tell somebody, what would you say to somebody who maybe reads this book and say, man, they're drinking, they're meeting up with girls, they're not doing things the right way they should be? Because I, as a Latino as well, I kind of thought at times man, guys, you're messing this up, right? This is your golden ticket right here. So what would you say to somebody who's you see, this is how it is and they don't respect the rule of law and stuff? I guess without realizing they're kids, they're teens, like you mentioned, first time with some freedom. How would you kind of talk to somebody about that? It's a loaded question, but I'm curious about that.
I think it's all about perspective, because at the end of the day, they were still showing up. They did still go to work. They did still take responsibility. Yes. They still did reach out to their families.
Yes.
So I think they were still, at their age, taking on more responsibility than a lot of us American children will ever have to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big point, is they took on the responsibility of knowing that the debt that their family was in was theirs.
Correct.
We're not walking around with $20,000 growing debt. They were.
Yeah.
They still worked after school all the hours they possibly could, doing jobs that I've never had to do.
Yeah.
So I think it's just taking a step back and being like, did you ever have to work every hour you had free after school? No.
Yeah.
Did you have to send all that money you made back home? No. Did you ever feel just did you ever feel yourself shutting down because you couldn't do what you were sent here to do? No.
Yeah.
So like, I feel like it's just taking it in, like, they made those mistakes. We do that, but like, we're not getting reprimanded for it.
Sure.
But they were doing it, still going to work, probably hungover, honestly. But they still went, and they still did their job well. And their bosses still kept them around because they were doing it well.
Correct.
And then they woke up and still tried to get to school. And they ended up in the end doing well for themselves, I feel like.
Yeah.
So I think it's just that perspective of, did you have to do that? And if you did, could you handle it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably not. Probably not.
Yeah.
I think it's unfortunate how harshly immigrants are judged for anything they do. Because at the end of the day, they're human.
Sure.
Like, they want to unwind. Yeah, underage drinking is bad.
Sure.
I definitely think that. But I think when you carry trauma, when you have to go through so much just to get, to the same place that people are at without having to do everything you have to do, it's a completely different thing, you know?
Is.
Like, it's completely different. I mean, they're teenagers. Teenagers make dumb mistakes. Like, even American teenagers do underage drinking
all the time.
Like, that's a all the time thing. Not that it's right, but it happens. Same thing with them. I mean, having to come to the U.S. without knowing English, and then on top of that, like Miranda said, worrying about your debt that's growing every day.
Yeah. The
fact that you have to continue to go to school without, like, how you thought you were going to have to go and work and have more time to work and make more money. But now you have to worry about your education because these are the standards that are being set for you to be able to be there.
Yeah.
So it's like all these things where it's like you don't understand the amount of pressure these kids are going through. And if, like, I don't know, I feel like it's pretty easy to see that things are hard and they're having so much responsibility. Like, responsibility, we have absolutely no clue what it's like to have.
Yeah.
So I think maybe like a little bit understanding, humanizing people, putting yourself in their shoes would definitely help.
Yeah.
Because I genuinely don't think I could do all that, everything they did.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I don't either.
No, and doing all that, knowing that at any moment someone, like, getting treated poorly at the same time by other people. We had talked about it separately, like, before the podcast, but, like, they didn't even have, like, Social Security, so they're working jobs under the table.
Oh, yeah.
Taking whatever they can get while also being talked down by the people in that restaurant that they're working to make their experience better. So I'm like, if y'all couldn't think from that perspective of, like, you have nothing, you're sending whatever you can back home, you're worried about these things. So I think it's just take a step back and think, can you do that? And don't lie to yourself. Like, could you actually do it?
Exactly.
Because I can admit I would not be able to do that. Like, I would just lay there. I would just lay there and not be able to get up. Because, like, there's just so much to think about at their age.
And it's not only about them, but their family back home.
Yeah.
Like, everything they have going on, even, like, I don't know, like, that's kind of what I meant when, like, they don't understand that they had to do so much just to get in the same position as maybe, like, a U.S. citizen or a U.S. resident has. Like, especially touching on the Social Security when we talked about that. Like, growing up undocumented, and especially being a teenager, it was incredibly hard to find a job.
Of course.
And not only that, but knowing that people can kind of talk to you how they want, treat you how they want, because what are you going to do? You're going to go tell someone, and then what? You're going to get in trouble? Like, that's the kind of thing that I thought about a lot, that it's just hard.
Yeah.
It's just incredibly hard.
Yeah. And they could they're going to be like, I'm not even paying you the federal minimum wage.
Exactly.
Right?
Because you don't have to. It's not that it's
you
right.
don't really exist on paper. So, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
There's $5 an hour. Take it or leave it. You
Exactly.
So, okay. So you mentioned Facebook, right? Obviously, that was a area of serious discussion at book club. So what are your thoughts on the role that Facebook played? You know, the boys were and their sister, they were very active, posting their whereabouts, posting what they're doing. I mean, that's a digital trail that you just don't get rid of. So what are your thoughts on that?
Guys, I was so upset with them for their use of Facebook. Like, once they got in San Francisco, I was like, at least wait, you know? But when they were still in El Salvador, I'm like, you have gangs searching for you. You have already paid to get across, and you were posting when you're leaving. You're posting that you're going alone.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, oh, I was so stressed out because once they because they didn't say anything, obviously they're just like, oh, and Ernesto posted this on Facebook. I was like, this is not going to end well. I already knew. I'm like, how are you going to say you're leaving alone? It makes it look like you're running away,
Sure.
like you did it. And you're going to post when you're leaving. Oh, of course they're going to be able to find you. And then obviously with like the whole, like Raul even was like, brother.
Like,
but
bruh.
then, then Raul starts posting, and then they get to America and they're still posting. And I'm like, oh, like this is not good. Because even though you're in the United States, like the gang, like MS-13 specifically, that they were running from and that their uncle was using to hunt them down, I'm like, let's think, guys. They are not only in your country, like there's parts of them here now.
Sure.
And you're in California, like, guys, like that's what I kept thinking about. I was like, oh, I get it. Like we, especially like our generation, or just like social media is a big thing, and I get it, like wanting to share a selfie with no location and no caption. Like if you really want to be seen, post them your pic, but like, why are you saying so much? That's all I could think about.
I got you.
I think it was such a teenager thing, like for them to just be constantly posting, because I felt the same way. I was like, I am literally already on edge with everything that's going on. And like the Facebook posts are not helping. Like it's genuinely like putting a target in your back. And then like, I get it. I mean, they want to feel connected. They want to, you know, have that connection with people from their, you know, from El Salvador. But geez, that was hard to read about, you know, how much they use Facebook.
It was pretty silly, but again, it's just going back to the youth, the lack of awareness, and just like, oh, you know what, I didn't realize that, you know, that kind of attitude. So okay, so what did the book reveal about the emotional cost of family separation? Right, so they communicate to their family via Facebook, messaging and stuff. You know, they talk to the parents and stuff when they can, but there's that disconnect. We're thousands of miles away. You know, you're supposed to be sending us money back home. At times they couldn't, sometimes they did. I mean, just the cost of it all. So what did the book reveal about that?
I think it did a really great job showing the different family connections and how each one was becoming strained. Because the brother, I forgot her name, Marlena was the sister, I think.
I forgot her name as well.
The sister that ended up having like the children.
Yes.
She having to deal with the brother, and then kind of having just to relay how she could, and then the brothers in the US not being able to do anything, but also it didn't really show them communicating with that brother specifically. So it kind of just showed the different dynamics. We didn't really get to see them communicate with their younger siblings or with their niece, I believe. Niece. Then getting to see the parents' side, where they're revealing that they were actually struggling extreme, but they didn't want to tell them. So then you're seeing that, but you can tell that the brothers are extremely guilty. But then you see their sisters start to get mad at them because they're posting on Facebook that they have an iPhone and new shoes and friends. And she's probably like, she was saying like, oh, well, they have it all. So why aren't they sending you? They can buy an iPhone, they can buy shoes, they have all these friends. But she doesn't get to see real life that Raul was suicidal and that Ernesto was doing a lot of stuff he shouldn't have been doing. And so I think that was so interesting to see that they were really only telling each other what they thought they should know. And they weren't actually able to see how much everyone was struggling. So that was really interesting, and getting to see the parents, at least mostly the mother, start to finally get to the breaking point, because she was so strong. She was like, no, it's okay. You're there for yourself. You're there for yourself. Do what you can for yourself. And then finally being like, we're struggling. Like, we're gonna have to, like, her getting to that point made me realize like how bad it was. And I think that's what hit the brothers, was like, she's finally admitting that they're struggling when they never wanted to put their kids in that situation. So it was interesting to see the dynamic shift and change just through texts that sometimes they weren't even able to reply to, phone calls that were like counted by the minutes, because over there in Salvador they couldn't really talk that long. So that was really interesting.
I agree. I think seeing you know, the family keeping a lot of information from them, you know, not telling them how bad they were struggling, you know, the drought, things like that, where they're not letting them know how bad the situation is. I think that was very interesting to see.
I can only speak from my perspective, but I feel like that's such a Latin culture thing.
To
just compartmentalize and internalize everything. Like, oh no, you know,
we're all good.
We're fine. No pasa nada, we always say, right? Like, but in reality, it's like it hurts. And it hurts just as bad, but you don't want to show it. You don't want to talk about it. And it's like, come on, man, you know, there's issues here. We can talk about it. But again, they were separated by, you know, thousands of miles. You know, they didn't have a whole lot of ways to reach each other than Facebook and maybe a phone call or text, but even that was difficult to do.
Yeah.
So what factors in the book contribute to teenagers becoming parents so young? And do you think early parenthood in the book is presented as a cause of poverty, a consequence of poverty, or both?
I think specifically from the book, I think it was both.
Okay.
And poverty, yes. Culture, a lot. I think the culture of growing up there, I mean, I keep forgetting her name, but the sister that did end up having the children and going through teenage pregnancy twice.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know how you don't kind of expect that to happen, especially growing up in her large family. Like, her parents kind of were just like, God will tell me, like, when we're done having children, and that's how they followed it. They continued to have as many kids as they felt like was destined for them.
Sure.
And if you're going to grow up with that perspective in a large family with parents that are like, if it happens kind of, and they don't use like preventatives, that's not part of anything. Like, that's very looked down upon, is to stop God's plan. And so I'm like,
yeah.
And also obviously we didn't see if the parents explained these things to them.
Sure.
But it's hard to not see that occurring if you're going to kind of go hang out. You're not going to have anyone kind of tell you like, hey, we'd really like you to have more than we did. When she thinks like having a family is more.
Yeah.
Like, she thinks that is what is going to be better for her and get her out of the situation, get her out of the house, find a man that wants to be with her. Just like how her mom has their dad and their family and they're so strong.
Yeah.
So I think it has a lot to do with their situation, like poverty, yes, but I think it's also just a culture thing, because even other kids probably are going through teen pregnancies, but maybe in a nicer house.
Sure.
But I feel like it had a lot more to do with culture maybe than necessarily poverty.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, things they see with their family maybe becomes normalized to them, so they don't see it as like, oh, like, you know, how we see teen pregnancy. So I think it definitely has to do with culture and family.
Yeah, I think like back in the day, like my mother and her siblings, my mom was one of 12, and they used to go up north to Ohio and pick strawberries and everything. And I think the American concept of having more kids during those times, you know, as a migrant, you go up north and you work the fields. I think that's a little different. But I think it's certainly culture, certainly as well as some poverty aspect of it. But the idea of not using contraceptives and stuff and the religious aspect of it, especially in Latin cultures, like, you know, you don't do this, you know, natural family planning. It's like you know, if God's will is for us to have more kids, that's what we're going to do. But I know to the very Americanized reader in us, we were probably yelling at the book, like, what the heck are you doing? Right? Like, wake up. You know what I mean? Especially because I thought that the guy was just going to leave her and stuff. And he kind of did for a bit. He, you know, he ended up with his ex, but he came back. So seemed like it may have worked out. Who knows? But certainly interesting that she got pregnant twice. So, okay. So how does growing up surrounded by violence change a young person's understanding of what is normal? Now, this might not be from your own experience, but just from the book itself and what we've read and heard.
I think it changed a lot of what they experience as normal, because they saw such graphic violence. Whereas like here, maybe we see violence, but not firsthand, maybe it's through the news.
Sure.
Maybe it's not in our city, but like one of the examples of violence they had experienced was their neighbor. So like the violence was literally on their doorstep. So I think that adds to another extent of what they're experiencing and how graphic the violence is there. I mean, the use of machetes, which they talked about, like it wasn't like how we see it here, I feel like. So for them, I think it changed a lot and changed their expectations of what they should be able to handle.
Okay.
Not necessarily like, oh, a fist fight at school. Like they were prepared for the worst.
Yeah.
So I think that changed how they were kind of anticipating violence, maybe even here in America.
Sure.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, especially after viewing that in the safe house and having like all that previous experience with violence, I think it definitely shapes how, you know, because he was very quiet about it. It's not something that he even shared with his twin. So I think what Miranda said is completely right. I mean, it changes your, like, I guess your thought process and how you think you should view violence as a normalized thing and not let it affect you as much, even though it is affecting you in your daily life.
You kind of become a product of your environment in some ways, and some people kind of become like kind of numb to it. They see it. They're, you know, it's like, I feel like maybe it's not a good analogy, but like you're a nurse or a doctor, right? You have patients that you care about, but they end up dying. You kind of become a little cold, not because you don't care, but it's just like it happens, right?
Just normal.
And I think it's normal. You see it often. You just kind of like, well, okay.
And you have to be able to move on.
You just move on. Yeah. So, okay. What alternatives, if any, did the brothers realistically have besides leaving El Salvador?
Honestly, when I read that question, I could not think of anything.
Yeah.
Especially because maybe if they were in a different country and there was like a bordering country they could maybe get into that was safer.
Yeah.
There wasn't. I mean, even the countries they were having to go to were having their own conflict at that time.
Yeah.
Whether it was gangs or not, or police like kind of becoming strong-headed about how they wanted to treat the citizens. Those were all the surrounding countries they had access to.
Sure.
So even if they got into the next country, they would have been targets, especially how you talked about earlier, their way of speaking, the way they dressed. They would have had no one. At least getting to the U.S. in their minds was like, we have someone.
Sure.
So I couldn't think of another place for them to go besides the U.S.
Yeah, definitely. Because even if like they try to reside in Mexico, I feel like Mexico has its own like xenophobic views of certain, Central American countries.
Yep.
So I think even that would have been extremely difficult for them to do or navigate, just because, unfortunately, it's a lot of xenophobia. So I think realistically, the U.S. was the only way for them to get out of the situation, being a safer spot.
Safer environment.
Yes.
Yeah, we definitely wanted to ask that question just in terms of like, the individuals who may say like, you could have just gone somewhere else in your city. You could have moved
Yeah.
And sure, that's possible, but that doesn't escape the violence they made. Their uncle was going to find them. Again, they were irresponsible posting on Facebook where they were at and stuff. I mean, there was a chance they were going to be found anywhere they were at in that country. So
yeah. And even then, to say to that point, well, they could have gone. I mean, even Raul was the one found on the route. He was the one that didn't post anything. His own twin didn't know he was leaving, and they still found them.
That's right. Yeah.
With a photo of them.
That's
so
right.
it wasn't just like a random act. Like, they were hunted, and they were found, and they were assaulted.
Yeah.
And that was in a different country, on a different route, a different twin. Like, I mean, you can't even, like, they were going to be found. They were found. At least Raul was.
Yeah.
So
I think this next couple of questions are really important. I want to ask these. So what stereotypes about immigration did this book challenge? Like, from your worldview, your perspective, was there anything that like really stood out to you that's like, man, like, for example, George, a navigator, he was saying that, hey, he kind of knew some of these things, but his perspective was literally like, I'm from San Antonio. Like, it's still like, it's not a border town, but it's 2.5 hours away. But he's like, I don't have that worldview, right? So for him, it was certainly unique. And he's like, man, I was naive to a lot of this stuff. So what are your thoughts on that? What stereotypes about immigration did this book challenge?
I think the biggest one that I think most people would see is that immigrants are not bad and they're not inherently harmful and they're not evil and they're not violent. A lot of them, especially that come here, are because some groups are violent towards them, not because they're violent or they want to come here to spread violence. Like, a lot of the times we are their last hope. And I don't think a lot of people take the time to realize that.
Yeah.
And they're taking our jobs. Most of them can't take our jobs because they don't even have papers.
Yeah.
So they don't have a social security card. They're not even getting paid anything to do the job they're doing. And they're still, even when they do that, they're still paying into taxes. They're still contributing in many ways.
Correct.
And I feel like people want to dismiss that part just so they can say, well, they're taking our jobs, or like they're so mean, they're so this, they're so that. But I'm like, they're working in places that you probably don't even notice. They're working in our kitchens. They're washing the dishes you just ate off of. Like, they're walking around collecting your dishes. Or they're keeping your grass cut for like a penny compared to the other worker they're working with. They're building your houses. Like,
correct.
They're doing so much, and to dismiss that because of a stereotype of, well, they're probably part of a gang, or they're probably so mean, or like just stuff like that. I'm like, be so for real. Like, you just actually don't even want to think right now at all.
Yeah.
I think going off that, I really do think that America's built on immigrants. They're our backbone. They do so much and it goes unnoticed.
Yeah.
I think especially with, not that it changed my perspective or made me view anything differently, but from my own experiences, like, my parents always paid into the 18 thing. Like, they always did their taxes. They always did like that. People surrounding them would also do the same. It's such a thing where immigrants contribute a lot. And when they do that, it's not like they can take out benefits or anything like that. Like, you literally just cannot. Like, you're putting in money to the system.
Sure.
But you can't vote. You can't receive any benefits. You can't receive like things, U.S. citizens, U.S. residents would. So I think I really enjoyed, them mentioning that and touching on that, because I feel like there's a lot of misconception about immigration and the fact that they take resources and they take jobs.
Yeah.
But it's like, it really just is a backbone in building off, like, doing your taxes yearly. Yeah. Even though a lot of people think that that's not, accurate, or it doesn't happen.
Yeah. I mean, they probably don't even have access to retirement, stuff like
exactly.
that. It's like they're working till they're dying. You know what I mean? People don't consider those things. So, okay. So should children who flee violence be viewed differently from adults who immigrate voluntarily? Why or why not?
This one was a hard one for me. I was reading it earlier.
It is a hard one.
I feel like it's so dependent because even though they're adults, like they're still fleeing probably for a very good reason. So it's just hard. I do think, obviously, especially unaccompanied minors or just minors that are coming here with a single parent that are fleeing violence, like I wish they were seen a little bit like we do need to help these people. We can't just send them back.
Sure.
But I feel the same feeling for adults because they still have nothing, you know? And at least now that I'm like learning about how like at least the twins had a little bit more help.
Yeah.
And they had a little bit more time and a little bit more grace because they were just even under 18. And I kind of wish adults had that because they're still in the same situation. They're probably also fleeing something or just trying to provide and may never get to see their family again. Just like how the kids may never see their family again, or they'll continue to work jobs without the ability to even get paid minimum wage. They're doing those very same things, but they'll probably continue having to do that till they die and just keep sending money back. Where at least I feel like the children, some of them got a little bit more help. Like they'll have more time to apply for their green card. They'll have more time.
Yeah.
Whereas the adults are very like getting close to out of time and they won't have those years it takes. Because also people think it's like it takes a day to apply to do all this legally the right way, but it doesn't. There's people here that it took them 30 years to get their green card.
Yeah.
So like I don't think if you come here as an adult and it takes you that amount of time, you're out of time at that point.
Sure.
Like the parents you left behind probably aren't alive anymore.
Yeah.
The family you left behind probably aren't there anymore. Whereas with kids, unless they have to do what the twins did, which was literally cut off their parents, they can't help their parents. They can at least go visit them.
Yeah.
And they'll have more time. I just wish adults were viewed in that because they're running out of time.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's like a give and a take.
Sure.
Yeah, I think definitely people don't realize that, you know, when people say do things the legal way, that there's really not as many, you know, options as they think.
Yeah.
Like, it's definitely very frustrating. I think that I view it the same where I think adults should also be helped because you don't immigrate to a new country just because, you know, willy-nilly. You just want to. Like, I think life will be great here, so I'm going to go. It's like, no, it's a mix of things, you know.
Sure.
Seeing the violence, you know, cartels or gang violence, poverty, just the way things are, the lack of opportunity, money, food, anything like that. I think there should definitely be like more help towards adults as well.
Yeah. I mean, people love their country. They're not leaving just because if they had options, they'd stay.
Yeah.
Right. And like you mentioned, like the process is long, it's drawn out. But being compassionate enough and humanizing these individuals, adults and kids, to be like, hey, look, chances are they're not leaving just because they, you know, want to go tour somewhere. No, it's because they're genuinely facing some hardship, violence, whatever it is. So it's certainly just being a decent human in the sense of having compassion to say, hey, look, I don't know what they're going through. I've never lived in their shoes, but it's certainly something to consider, right?
Yeah.
To think about. So what are your overall thoughts on the book? Did you like the book or not? Would you recommend it to others?
I really enjoyed it. At first I was kind of hesitant just because, like I said before, I tend to read like fiction, murder mystery, thriller. So like this, I don't think would have been a book I would have picked up on my own.
Gotcha.
So I'm very thankful that I kind of was just like handed in and say like, we're gonna record. Cause I was like, oh, like it was extremely eye-opening. I'm very grateful that I read it because even though I do have the perspective I have on things, it still adds to what you're able to bring to a conversation. I feel like you're able to kind of back it up a little bit more because I already still feel how I feel, but now I can say, well, did you know this? Or did you ever think of this?
Yes.
And now I can say like, that's true, like that's real and it's happening. So I think I would definitely recommend it to anyone. I think it's a good book just to kind of shift perspective and maybe make you feel stronger on your points or maybe kind of make you reconsider how you saw things before.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely. I read a lot of fiction too. I don't, you know, read a lot of nonfiction. So I think this book definitely opened up like me exploring nonfiction more. I really did enjoy it. I talked about it with my mom, you know, especially us having shared immigration experience and stuff like that, navigating the legal system. It's something that she definitely was interested in reading too. You know, we have a lot of acquaintances or people we know that are from Central America.
Yeah.
So I think she thought it was really interesting and like, especially when I mentioned like, you know, how it is for them here in Mexico when they're, you know, navigating Mexico and stuff. She was just like, yeah, I mean, it's super disappointing to know that there's a lot of, you know, xenophobia and like things like that going on whenever they're crossing. So I think definitely, like Miranda said, it gives you perspective and being able to bring up more in conversations, not just about like for me, my personal experiences, but being able to speak about other things, you know, with a little bit more nuance or a little bit more perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what I really enjoyed about reading the book.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely something that I think everybody should read. You know, whether, like you said, to strengthen your point or maybe challenge your viewpoints or not, just to kind of see what, even for 300 pages, to see what somebody went through to kind of get here and try to make it, you know, here in the United States. So, and to finish off, so what are y'all currently reading?
Oh my gosh, what's the name of it? I'm reading The Daisy Chain Flower Shop by Lori Gilmore.
Okay.
I'm currently rereading Jane Eyre.
Jane Eyre?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Anybody reread The Odyssey for the movie?
No.
I've never read it.
No.
No.
It's a good one. We were talking about it in the office earlier. So the Iliad's really good and the Odyssey's good. I prefer the Iliad, but certainly wanted. I was brushing up on it. I've read it twice, I think. Once for school and then once when I got older. But certainly wanted to brush up a little bit just so I can get ready for the film. But I was like, yeah, I think I'm ready. So, but I'm reading a book called Double Cross. It's about the spy agents from Britain and from the United States during World War II who kind of helped successfully kind of infiltrate Nazi areas. So it's
that's
pretty
really
good.
cool.
Pretty good book. So thank you all so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.